Hello darlings, how are you? If you've wondered about moving to Norway or you're just curious about what's it like to live here, in today's video I will talk about pros and cons about living in Norway, and I will share information that is important for you to know. I have been living in Norway for about 5 years now, and please note that this video is based on my personal experience and what I have heard from people that have been living here for many years now. It's just my opinion and I don't claim that I'm right about everything, so this is an open conversation in the comments below. Let's start with the most obvious thing. In general, living in Norway is quite expensive, so if you want to save money, you have to watch your spending. For me personally, I have made good enough salary money and I have saved some because I made an effort to keep my expenses low. Cheap food does not really exist here like in other countries where I lived, where you could really live for cheap if you wanted to. So you need to watch your spending with groceries or they can make a big hole in your salary. And because I do watch my spending, you know, I don't go out much, I don't drink a lot of alcohol, I watch my spending around groceries. This has helped me save money. But I have to say, not being able to have a spontaneous social life because things are so expensive here has affected my emotional state. But then with the money I save, I can afford to take epic trips like my last video where I went to Ålesund and Geiranger, and I treated myself to a pretty expensive vacation. I could have never afforded that on a salary in Spain or in Romania, for example. A thing that is hard for me sometimes, since Norway's population is only 5 million people, but the country is so big, the distances are very long, so this country does not have the best public transportation, and if you need to get places fast, you need a car, and that can be quite expensive. Gas prices are so high in Norway, and lately electricity prices have gone up drastically, and you pay taxes for everything in Norway. I have a friend who told me that she pays taxes on the child support that her ex-husband pays to her child from his salary, which has already been taxed on. Another example is that if your job pays for your phone or your car or your food, you have to pay tax on that. I recently did a tax course for small businesses, and yeah, you pay tax on everything, and you better not play around with not paying the right taxes, because if they catch you doing something shady, the fines are super high. But this creates for a very strong social security system. If you struggle financially and you can't find a job, the government will give you money to support yourself and your children for up to a year, maybe more, depends on the case. So yeah, from that perspective, it can be considered a pro. There is a strong welfare system that will take care of the citizens. Also, if you have a baby and you have worked for the last 6 months, you have a 1 year mother or father paid leave, which you can split in between the parents. So you can take 1 year off with your full salary to take care of your baby. Another big pro is that Norway is one of the safest countries for women and children. I mean, bad things happen everywhere, but compared to other countries, the crime rate is really low. And it is also very safe from a driving perspective. Everybody drives so well here. That's very nice. One of the things I love most about Norway is how civilized and nice people are here. It makes for a really good vibe society. On another topic, for children, healthcare is free, but for adults you have to pay a little for doctor's consultations, and it can take a long time to get treatment from the public system depending on the problem, and private healthcare is very expensive. Education is not free with the exception of public university that is almost free, but my friends who have children pay 200 to 300 euros monthly for their kids' schools. Contrary to popular beliefs, my friends who have children have told me that it is very expensive to have children here. Big pro, university is almost free in Norway, even for internationals, and the government gives you a student loan called Lånekasse, and 30 to 40% of that you don't have to pay it back. It's converted into a scholarship if you have graduated on time, with the condition that you did not earn too much money during your studies. But a big con is that interest rates went up from a 1% that was for many years to a 5% now, which means that if you have a loan of 20 to 30,000 euros, you are paying at least 100 euros in interest per month. And that interest rate seems to be going higher in the future, so if you don't have a high paying job, it's going to take you a long time to pay off that loan. The thing for you to take here is that the government will create opportunities for you to get an education in order to get a good job. Job market is pretty good here, but depending on the field, sometimes it can be hard. Another big con is that in the cities where you can find work easily, Rents and buying apartments, crazy expensive. Now you cannot even think about buying an apartment if you're on your own. The bank will not give you so much money for just one person. And because interest rates went up so much, mortgages have become a big expense for many people. And since a normal apartment is more than €500,000, not a lot of people can afford buying. You can also get cheaper, but it has to be something really small, or you need to go far away from the city. By the way, if you want to see more videos like this, subscribe. And if you want to support me, share this video with your friends on your social media. This helps me a lot, and hit the like button. Thank you. You can also click the notification bell, so every time I make a video, you get notified that I made a video. When I moved to Norway, cost of living was much cheaper, but post-inflation, salaries have not gone up by much. However, food prices, for example, are up almost 50%. Many Norwegians are complaining about that now. But changing to a more positive topic, a pro for me is that Norwegians are really nice people. But of course, depending on the city, they tend to be pretty shy, because Norwegian society is a lot about not bothering the other person. Be polite, be respectful. Don't make a fuss, don't stand out. If you come from a Western European or Latin American country, for example, this may be perceived as a lack of openness. You do not get invited as easily into people's lives as in other cultures, and this can affect a lot of people. One of the things that I have heard foreigners often complain here, especially those who don't speak the language, is that it can be hard for them to get into Norwegian social circles and make Norwegian friends. People here have lifelong childhood friends, and they are very comfortable in their groups and communities, and it is not very common for them to want to make the effort to make newcomers a part of their lives. Even though Norwegians are friendly and polite, they are not prone to invite you as easily into their close circles or homes, and this can be seen as cold from different cultures. For example, when I was living in Spain, I always got invited everywhere, at people's family meals, in people's groups of friends, at social gatherings, communities, and this does not happen as often in Norway. I have heard many foreigners complain about that, but for me it's not necessarily a negative thing, because I think it's healthy for people to take their time to let you into their lives. And me personally, I do not need to be included everywhere. I value my me time a lot. I'm very independent from that point of view, and I will search my own tribe. And I am an extrovert that talks too much. I don't feel always adequate about that, but I don't care so much about what people are thinking about me. Obviously, I'm on the internet talking about my life after all. If you're thinking about moving to Norway from a country that has a big culture of social life, you should know that you're going to need to be comfortable being alone, especially in the beginning and especially during winter, because everything is so expensive here and outside is very, very cold. Social life is not going to be so abundant. I used to have a massive social life in Spain, up to a point where I got burnt out, and then I moved here, and the lack of that social life made me feel very lonely in the beginning, but then I gradually adapted, and now I am very comfortable being alone. I value my peace a lot, you know. And of course you're gonna make Norwegian friends. I have in time. People are nice here, they are kind, and if you are a kind and good person and you treat others well, people are gonna want to be your friends. Just like the saying, if you want to make a friend, be a friend. Obviously, it makes a big difference if you make an effort to learn the language, you adapt to the culture here, you take action to socialize, you know, make the first step. Now, a big con that I have heard foreigners complain about is that it is hard for them to get a good job, even though they have the education and the experience, and they end up getting lower paid jobs like waitressing or dishwashing, working in a warehouse, because it takes such a long time for them to get a good shot. This is a generalization. Obviously, there are always different cases. And some of my Norwegian friends have mentioned to me that Norwegians prefer to hire and work with other Norwegians. But a pro about living in this country is that because the economy is pretty good, you can find other jobs pretty easily, and the salaries are often good. There is a healthy work-life balance culture here, and the employees' rights are taken very seriously. Obviously, it depends where you work. There will always be those people that try to take advantage of employees. but those are the exceptions. Most jobs pay well enough and you can make a good living with a salary like a waitress or working in a warehouse or being a dishwasher. Then a pro or a con, see it as you wish. It is really hard to fire people here, and you cannot be fired unless you do something drastically wrong, like come drunk to work or hit somebody. They can't fire you without a good reason, or they need to pay a lot of money. There are very strong laws here to protect the employees. Okay, so I saved the biggest pro and con for last. And now I will talk about the biggest con for me personally about living in Norway. It's the weather. Yeah, it is cloudy, it rains often. In winter, it is very dark, and we just do not have a lot of sunny, warm days. Winter lasts about 5 months, and from October to about February, it gets dark around 3 p.m. and it's just very cold outside, and the few hours of daylight that we have don't have any sun, just gray clouds. This has really impacted my mental health for the last few years, but now I have adapted to it. And then summer comes, you know, and it's rainy and colder than other places. And one day you can have 25 degrees and it's sunny, lovely, and then it's 15 degrees and rainy for the rest of the week. There's 2 reasons why I still live in Norway despite the expensive cost of living, the bad weather, and the reduced social life. First, because even with all the cons, I have to say that there is a very good quality of life if I compare it to most countries. And that is a big pro that outweighs all the cons in this video. And obviously, a massive pro is that this country is made of spectacular nature. A pro about Norwegians and living in Norway is that hiking, being out in nature, being active or exercising is a way of life. So that's very cool. My favorite Norwegian cultural practice, if I can call it so, is to take my hammock, go out to a beautiful nature place close to the city, grill some delicious food and just chill and enjoy. This is one of my favorite things to do in life now. For me, this is true luxury. The peace and pleasure I get from that makes my life worth living. The fact that I can live in the capital city of Oslo and take the subway for 30 minutes and find myself in an epic, beautiful place like this is just amazing. Wherever you live in Norway, even if it's a big city, you have access to these beautiful, magical places really close by, and also to be able to afford to go travel to beautiful places like this, it fills me with joy for life, you know? But now, if you're thinking about moving to Norway, the number one thing that I would prioritize is learning the language. Don't do like I did. For years, I had to have a job I didn't enjoy doing because I didn't learn Norwegian, and I even went back to school and studied marketing, and that diploma didn't serve at all because I didn't speak Norwegian. So if you want to get opportunities in the job market, I would recommend you prioritize learning Norwegian. Listen, I'm still learning and struggling with it because learning a language while you have a full-time job it's hard, okay? But I do have to say that I did get my new job because I speak a little Norwegian. By the way, I made a video about that. If you want to know more, link below. It is very important to mention that everything I've talked about in this video does not mean it's going to be your experience here. I think you should do more research, and if you plan on moving to Norway, you should watch other people's videos because communities are different, people are different. There is no perfect place to live. Every society has its advantages and disadvantages. But overall, for me, the pros overweigh the cons now, and who knows, maybe my opinion will change in the future. One of the things that I also want to share is that moving to Norway didn't fix me. Don't get me wrong, I know I am privileged and I feel grateful about getting to live in such an amazing country with so many benefits. However, I do have to say that all of the problems that I had in my life when I was living in Spain, I brought those with me to Norway. And moving to Norway has changed some things for the better. I have a lot of advantages, but it has also impacted some aspects of my life not in the most positive way. What I'm trying to say is that don't expect moving to a different country to fix your life if you yourself are not ready to put in the work and change. And of course, I'm not talking about extreme life situations like war or human rights inequality. I'm referring to the personal struggles that we have as people. When you move to a foreign country, some of those struggles are only going to get bigger. So wherever you are right now, Do your best to live a fulfilled life with the circumstances around you rather than projecting your happiness in a different country or somewhere in the future. And let's be honest, this is challenging even for me. I'm working on following my own life advice. I made a video about my personal struggles. If you're not happy, it's not enough to escape far away. You also need to do the work on yourself to be better and happier. And in most cases, this is going to be hard, painful, and sometimes scary. But what's the alternative? We lay down and suffer? No, we take actions, many actions. And I was recently talking to somebody about the real limitations that we have in life, for being foreigners, immigrants. But you know what? These limitations, they are real, but that doesn't mean they're our limitations, okay? That doesn't mean they need to be your limitations. I hope that this video has brought value to you. If you have any tips, maybe there's something that I didn't talk about in this video, please write it below. Let's share the knowledge. Maybe somebody that's thinking about moving to Norway are reading the comments and it can be very helpful for them. Let's help each other out. Even though I don't have time to answer to all the comments, I read every single one of them. And thank you so much for all the encouragement I have been getting from you guys. It makes a big difference. If you want to support me, again, subscribe, like, share my video. Thank you for watching. I appreciate you. See you in the next video.